We welcome on the dais Honorable Minister Shri Piyush Goyal, Honorable Minister Shri Bhupendra Singh Ji Chudasama, Honorable Minister Shri Saurabh Patel, Honorable Minister Shri Jayanti Kavadia, Dr. P.K. Mishra, Dr. Kande Yumkela, and Dr. Upendra Tripathi. Anu bhadraha kritavo yantu vishvataha. Meaning, let noble thoughts come to us from all directions of the world, says the Rigved. Namaskar and a very pleasant morning to all of you. Energy and Petrochemicals Department, Government of Gujarat welcomes you all to this thematic seminar on sustainable energy for all. We take this opportunity to welcome our dignitaries on the dais. We request Shri L. Chuango to welcome Honorable Minister Shri Piyush Goyal. Principal Secretary, Energy and Petrochemicals, Mr. L. Chuango, welcomes Honorable Minister Shri Piyush Goyal with flowers and a memento. We next request Mr. Sandeep Kumar, MD PGVCL, to welcome Honorable Minister Shri Bhupendra Singh Ji. May we request MD DGVCL, Mr. H.S. Patel, to welcome Honorable Minister Shri Saurabh Patel. May we request MD GACCL, Gurdeep Singh, to welcome Minister of State for Energy, Shri Jayanti Kavadia. Additional Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, Government of India, Dr. P.K. Mishra, will be welcomed by MD MGVCL, Shri S.B. Khayalia. MD JETCO, Mr. S.K. Negi, will welcome Dr. Kandel Yumkela, United Nations Under Secretary General and CEO for Sustainable Energy for All. Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, Dr. Upendra Tripathi, will be welcomed by Additional Secretary, MNRE, Ms. Shobhana Desai. Thank you, dignitaries. Mr. Mohinder Gulati is the Chief Operating Officer of the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. He acts as a strategic advisor to the CEO and supports day-to-day operations of the GFT. We now invite Mr. Gulati for his address.
Excellency Minister Piyush Goyal, Minister Saurabh Patel, Mr. Minister Bhupendra Singh Chudasama, Minister Jayanti Kavadia, and Dr. Yumkela, distinguished delegates, a very warm welcome to you all to this seminar on Sustainable Energy for All. Sustainable Energy for All is an initiative jointly led by the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and the World Bank President Jim Kim. This initiative was launched to ensure that globally we can achieve three objectives by 2030. Universal access to energy, doubling the share of renewable energy in the global mix, and doubling the rate of improvement of energy efficiency globally. At SE for All, we are delighted to be a partner organization of Vibrant Gujarat. I would like to thank Mr. Pandian, the Chief Secretary, and Mr. Chuango, the Principal Energy Secretary, for selecting sustainable energy for all as a thematic focus for this vibrant Gujarat. I would provide you a brief overview of the seminar. India has launched an ambitious program of scaling up renewables. It has also launched an ambitious program of improving end-use energy efficiency, that is consumer-level energy efficiency, to improve competitiveness of its economy. These are the two areas on which we will focus in this seminar. The seminar will discuss how to overcome the challenges of scaling up and integrating renewables into the Indian power system, and also look at the opportunities for improving energy efficiency. Reducing the cost of solar and the energy storage, those will be the two key considerations that India would face. A lot of research has gone into it, but a lot more research needs to be funded and carried out in reducing the cost of solar PV and also the storage. And the seminar will discuss how we can harness India's scientific and technology prowess to participate in a global coalition for research so that this pace of research and development and cost reduction of both can be accelerated. Coming to the energy efficiency, India is and will continue to rapidly urbanize in the next 3 decades. What can India learn from the good practices, but also from the bad practices on how to improve energy efficiency in the cities? One critical area is agriculture. This is one area where 60% of the India's population lives in rural areas and depends directly or indirectly on agriculture. How do we improve energy efficiency in agriculture? This is one sector where energy efficiency is intricately linked to water efficiency and agricultural productivity. If you see the last 2 decades, agriculture, on which 60% of India's population depends, has been growing between 2 to 3%, while manufacturing and services have grown at the rate of about 10 to 11%, which gives you an average of about 8%. So therefore, improving agricultural productivity, on which 60% of India's population depends, is absolutely critical. So therefore, in this seminar, we will also have a presentation on how to improve energy efficiency in agriculture, but also as a co-benefit of improving water efficiency and increasing agricultural productivity. This is the focus of the seminar for the next 4 hours. We hope we will have a very stimulating discussion, and not only a discussion, but we will also have some ideas will emerge which will spur us to action. A very warm welcome to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Gulati. Honorable Minister, Finance, Energy and Petrochemicals, Mines and Minerals, Cottage Industries, Salt Industries, Printing and Stationery, Planning, Tourism, Civil Aviation, Labour and Employment, Shri Saurabh Patel has been holding charge of key economic ministries in the government of Gujarat for the past 13 years. The Energy and Petrochemicals Department have witnessed massive transformation during his 13-year stint at the helm. We now invite Honorable Minister for his address.
A very good morning to you. It is my proud privilege to welcome Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, Minister of State for Power, Coal and Renewable Energy, Government of India. My senior colleague, Shri Bhupendra Singh Chudasama ji, Honorable Minister of Education, Shri Jayanti Kawadia, Honorable Minister of State for Panchayat, Rural Housing and Rural Development, Dr. Kande Yamahela, Under Secretary and Special Representative of the Secretary General United Nations, Shri Dr. P.K. Mishra, Additional Principal Secretary to Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Upendra Tripathi, Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, distinguished speakers, and participants in this seminar. The requirement and consumption of energy is supposed to grow rapidly as the pace of economic development of the developing countries like India are going to accelerate much faster in the coming years. Gujarat has contributed in a small way, but significantly for the people of state by increasing our power generation capacity nearly 3 times from 8,687 megawatts in 2003, when this vibrant Gujarat was started, to 23,993 megawatts today in this vibrant Gujarat 2015. During the same period, we have doubled our power transmission substations from 743 to 1,470. Doubled the number of consumers of state sector distribution companies from 75 lakhs to 1 crore 30 lakhs. We are providing 24/7 power supply to not only the urban areas but also to villages and hamlets in the state. There is no habitation in Gujarat which do not have access to grid connectivity, round-the-clock power supply. Gujarat has also adopted energy efficiency measures at 2 levels. One at the grid level and at the consumer's end. The measures at grid level through Jyoti Gram Yojana encouraging and enabling the farmers to adopt efficient use of electricity and water by improving the quality and reliability of power supply. High voltage distribution system and Khushi are the important schemes. Encouraging and supporting consumers to use energy efficient implements at the consumer's level. However, as the country's economy is poised to grow at a much faster pace, with the various progressive measures initiated by the Honorable Prime Minister and to be implemented by our Honorable Piyush Goyal ji, the requirement for the energy will make a quantum jump, and meeting the requirements will be a major challenge. The conventional primary sources of energy like coal, petroleum and natural gas will not be able to support our growing energy requirements indefinitely as these sources go on depleting. These conventional sources are also primary sources of carbon emission contributing to global warming. Therefore, to achieve security and sustainability in energy needs of the economy and people, we need develop and adopt energy efficiency measures much more aggressively and also find and develop alternative energy sources which are non-polluting and renewable. Gujarat has taken a lead in development of solar power in the country and is a home for nearly half of the total solar power generation capacity of the country. It also has more than 3,500 megawatts of wind power generation capacity today. The country, particularly Gujarat, has significant potential for harnessing and developing renewable energy. However, we cannot forget the fact that these renewable sources of energy are significantly costlier than conventional coal-based power. In spite of significant reduction in the cost of solar power projects, the per unit cost of electricity is still about double the cost of coal-based power. The cost of wind power generation is increasing in spite of technological improvements and better design and size of the machines. These are challenges in passing on this costlier power to the consumer. The power distribution companies in the country are already largely stressed financially, and they have limited capacity to absorb the extra cost. The variable nature of renewable energy also have significant financial implications to the power distribution companies, apart from posing big challenges in the grid management. Therefore, massive efforts are required to be made to bring down the cost of renewable power through multi-pronged approach and measures. Technology and other management measures will have to be worked out and developed to mitigate the problems of high variability, fluctuations in the generation of renewable energy. Energy efficiency measures will also require push than what we have been doing so far, while at the same time taking into account the cost benefit of such measures. I am happy that Energy and Petrochemical Department, Government of Gujarat, and Sustainable Energy for All of the United Nations organizations are organizing this seminar. I am confident that this seminar will help all the stakeholders in charting out cost-effective and technological robust plan of actions for achieving sustainable energy for all citizens. On the backdrop of this, the deliberations today at this seminar focusing on building a better energy future, leveraging frontier technologies and enhancing commercial viability for use of these technologies and energy efficiency will help reduce generation cost of renewable energy and help improve energy efficiency measures, contributing to sustainability and energy security. I welcome you all and convey my best wishes for the grand success of this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that very informative address. Dr. Kande Yumkela is United Nations Under Secretary General and the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All and CEO of the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. We invite you, sir, for your address.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, honorable ministers, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Secretary General of the United Nations, I want to thank the organizers for working with us to organize this session. I remember when Mohinda and I visited Pandian here about a year ago, discussing the possibility of this collaboration. We didn't even realize how big this event was going to be, and we're very pleased that the Secretary General and the President of the World Bank, both of whom are the leaders of Sustainable Energy for All, were able to come. We convinced them that Vibrant Gujarat was the place to be now, to see how, in fact, this state and the government of India in general are really leading the world in achieving the 3 targets we've set on the Sustainable Energy for All. And indeed, our 2 leaders were here in full force. But let me also recognize another partner who is in the front row, Anita George, if you would stand for a minute. Anita is the head of the World Bank Energy Practice. Anita is my partner in making things really happen on the ground, and we're very pleased that both of us could bring our bosses here to Vibrant Gujarat. But also, we're very pleased that 2 of our advisory board members are here. John Kerry is here. You've heard his speeches, very committed to the energy cause and sustainable energy for all. But also Minister Morgan Jensen of Denmark is also here. So sustainable energy for all, we delivered some of our leaders to show how much we believe in what you're doing here. And in fact, we have good examples and knowledge from Gujarat that we can take to the rest of the world. Let me just make 4 quick points why we believe we should collaborate with you and help Gujarat, but also India in particular, achieve their objectives in pushing for more manufacturing, as the Prime Minister put it yesterday, Make in India, in creating jobs and in fact pushing more prosperity in this country. There is no doubt that access to energy, affordable, reliable energy will be crucial in making the vision of making India a reality. You still have 300 million people without access to electricity. You still have 600 to 700 million people using biomass for their primary energy needs. Globally, household air pollution causes 4.3 million premature deaths a year. Most of them women and children, and about 600 or 700 million of those without access to clean cooking solutions live in India. So we are convinced that whatever India does in energy access, in making clean energy solutions available to their population, will help us reduce the number of the people living in the world without energy. So we are here to support India's drive to push for energy access for their people, but in particular to push for competitiveness in the Indian economy and promoting manufacturing and job creation. Second, reverse innovation. India, as it tries to meet its own goals for energy access, as India pushes for greater energy efficiency in its industry and its cities, there will be a lot of lessons learned. Our goal is to take some of those lessons to the rest of the world, particularly in Africa. There are things you're doing here already that we have not even started doing yet in Africa. So as much as you have problems where you are today, we in Africa, we're not even there yet. So part of our interest here is to see what we learn from you to take to the rest of the world. And we know your Prime Minister's vision is not only for India. Your Prime Minister's vision is for India to be a leader in the world in promoting new technologies and new ideas. So we are here also to see how we collaborate with you to acquire some of that knowledge for the rest of the world. Third, we're here to build a solar coalition, a renewable energy coalition. I introduced one of our other partners, Sir David King, the climate envoy of the UK. We're very pleased, Sir David, you could join us here. If you can stand for a minute. He'll be in your panels later. But he has been developing an idea with a group of scientists around the world. Those scientists believe that we can drive down the cost of renewables, but particularly solar energy and storage systems, to democratize energy. Many experts have told us, and CEOs of major energy companies, that the day we crack storage, the day we reduce the cost of storage, we change the business model of energy that we've had over 100 years. It makes it easier then to integrate renewables in the grids. It makes it easier then for any citizen anywhere to put up their own solar panel, store that energy, and have energy available whenever they need it. So one of the things we want to take from Gujarat, I'm going to call it Sir David, it's not going to be now the Solar Coalition. It's going to be the Gujarat Initiative. We want to leave here. That's why your first session here, we want to take this idea to the world that within a decade, we can build a coalition of countries and industries led by India to lower the cost of storage and solar to the point where we have universal grid parity around the world. We democratize energy. So the first panel you're going to have, the idea with Sir David is that from here, he will host us in London. Governments and companies that are determined that yes, combining public research resources and private sector research resources, putting more money in R&D, we can lower that cost and we can democratize energy. That's one of the things we want to take out of here. So we host you in London, and from London, we go to Paris in the climate negotiations. That we've built that coalition that in a decade will reduce that cost of solar and storage and will change the global energy mix, and we will democratize energy. And I see part of that coalition already building. We have the United Kingdom here, we have Japan, we have Germany, we have Denmark. So we can leave Gujarat led by Prime Minister Modi and other leaders, and we know from Gujarat to London to Paris, by the end of the year we'll launch our solar coalition. Number 4, I'm from Africa. We've had a long relationship between India and Africa. In fact, I know that the Gujaratis have opened up so many businesses in Africa, and I think that's the largest Indian community we have in Africa. So I know there is a lot of talk about India looking east, but I hope India will look west as well. I hope that the technology is here, that in fact we work with you, that you now create a new frontier for energy in Africa, where in fact India is the leader there. But it's not charity. We're not talking about charity in sustainable energy for all. We're talking about business models. You make money, we help people end energy poverty, and in fact we also create competitiveness and growth in Africa. Some of your major corporations, Reliance and others, are already making a headway in Africa. So, but yes, a lot of that is led by Gujaratis. So I'm making a case here for you that in whatever we do here, I hope, through South-South cooperation, which your government is doing very well around the world, that in fact, we can take energy solutions west to Africa and even strengthen India-Africa cooperation even more. Finally, thanks to the support of India, we've worked very hard in the UN now 3 years in convincing the world that you cannot achieve sustainable development without access to reliable, affordable energy. Well, for you, you will say, but that's obvious. Well, remember what happened. When we declared the Millennium Development Goals in 2000, there was no mention of energy. We took energy for granted. But yes, we've changed that. In the new Sustainable Development Goals that the Secretary General talked about yesterday, we've now established Goal 7, access to affordable, reliable, sustainable energy services. We've embedded it. Now we need Indian leadership. India helped us get it in, but now we need India as the technology leader, as the business leader, to make that a reality, as has been done in Gujarat. Gujarat, about 98% energy access. You're innovating every day. You have proven that it is doable, that we can achieve growth, we can promote renewables, we can promote energy access. Can we make that a reality for the rest of the world? I believe India can lead, and I have no doubt with the Prime Minister you have, who did it here in Gujarat, he can also join the Secretary General and the President of the World Bank to lead the world once those goals are developed and adopted in September this year. Thank you very much. We are partners with you. My team is here. I see Vijay Modi from Columbia University. I think Vijay Iyer is also somewhere in the room. We are with you in this march. We'll help you achieve your own goals, but let us help you help us change the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kanzela. Honorable Minister Shri Piyush Goyal, a well-known investment banker during his 27-year-long political career, has served on the national executive and held several important positions in the BJP. He was also nominated by the Government of India to the Task Force for Interlinking of Rivers. He was the deputy campaign in charge for the parliament elections in 1991 and played a key role at the central level in all elections since 2004. Shri Goyal is also a member of the Standing Committee on Finance and the Consultative Committee for the Ministry of Defence. We now invite you, sir, for your address.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Shri Bhupendra Singh Ji Chudasama, Honorable Minister, Shri Jayanti Bhai Kawadia Ji. My good friend Saurabh has just left me, but he had another seminar with the Honorable Finance Minister. But I must acknowledge to all of you that he is more a teacher to me than the Energy Minister of Gujarat, because my first visit out of Delhi after I became minister was to the state of Gujarat, where we had a long 4-hour session exchanging notes, understanding what power and energy is all about. So while the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi gave me the power to do something, I think Saurabh Bhai gave me the knowledge to be able to execute the grand vision of Prime Minister Modi, and for which I will always be grateful to Saurabh Bhai, to all his colleagues in Gujarat, and of course to the Honorable Chief Minister, who today is carrying forward the excellent work that Prime Minister Modi left behind in Gujarat. She's taking it to another level of development, making Gujarat one of the most progressive states of the country. And I compliment all of you for the excellent work that you have done in your state. Dr. P.K. Mishra, Additional Principal Secretary to the Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Kande Yumkela from the UN, and Dr. Upendra Tripathi, my colleague Secretary in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. When I came into this ministry 7 months ago, I had only one mandate that the Honorable Prime Minister gave me. He said this country which has been deprived of good quality power for 67 years after independence, where even today we have nearly 300 million people starved of energy, deprived of a basic amenity like electricity. Millions of homes don't have access to television, don't have access to even a bulb to be able to provide quality education to their children. And in this backdrop, the mission that Prime Minister Modi has given me, the mission that he has taken upon the government to perform, to deliver, and his vision for a country, an empowered India, where every home is lighted 24/7, every industry, every office has power round the clock, agriculture gets power in sufficient measure. That mission truly drives me and my colleagues in all our activities. And I'll make an effort to share with you some of our plans, some of our thoughts, some of our initiatives that we believe will help us achieve this mission, fast. Prime Minister Modi understands that this country is quite impatient now. The aspirational people of India want results, and we have a government which is committed to delivering on those assurances given to the people of India, and we have a Prime Minister who has the vision to be able to deliver on those promises. Clearly, the new government has its task cut out. We have inherited a legacy in which there were complications across the board. Whether we look at the generation capacity in the power sector, we had large number of stranded and stressed power plants, many of them turning into stressed assets for the banking system. Nearly 70 gigawatts of power plants, 70,000 megawatts of power plants were at different stages of completion or suffering for want of adequate fuel. We had a transmission and distribution network which did not allow a state like Gujarat or Madhya Pradesh or Chhattisgarh, which had surplus power, to be able to feed the power needs of southern India or eastern India, which are starved of power. We had a renewable energy mission which remained confined to the boundaries of 2 or 3 states, even within which clearly Gujarat was head over shoulders above all the other states. But a mission which 32 years after the Renewable Energy Ministry was carved out into a separate formulation, had achieved 2,900 megawatt of solar power. A country where distribution networks left a lot to be desired. We had burned transformers across the length and breadth of the country. We have a very poor metering system. You have customers complaining of wrong billing, and you have large number of customers not willing to pay for the power they consume. The laws of the land were not being implemented to the fullest. Renewable energy obligations were completely ignored and disregarded. Energy efficiency was nowhere on the horizon. There was allocation of coal blocks which was under a cloud, due to which for the last 4 or 5 years the country had barely grown by 1.5% in the coal production. And it's in this backdrop that Prime Minister Modi came into government. But I think by now all of you realize that he is one person who performs best when faced with a challenge. I think every crisis for him is an opportunity not only to deliver, but an opportunity to excel. And we've seen that in Gujarat. We saw the Gujarat story where, using very elementary ideas, something like the Jyoti Gram Yojana. In a manner of speaking, the world could have thought of it. It should have come up to all the technical experts, to all the doctorates and outstanding research specialists. But it was his very innate manner of looking at things in great detail, looking at things in a very simple way, how one can deliver good results, that formulated the Jyoti Gram Yojana. I know that when he first spoke about the segregation of distribution feeders, the amount of resistance he faced from all quarters to the concept. And to date, we have certain technical experts who argue that we can find a cheaper technical solution. We can segregate the connection within the existing system through phasing. And we have all sorts of arguments being presented. But in my 7 months, I believe the single largest contribution that Gujarat has given to the rest of the country, and in a way forward, sir, maybe for Africa and other developing countries, would be to look at the separation of feeders, the segregation of distribution feeders, as one of the most revolutionary steps that Gujarat started and we are now going to emulate in the rest of the country. And clearly, our objectives of meeting the development needs of India, meeting the power-hungry people's aspiration, cannot ignore the concerns for the environment. Prime Minister Modi is one person who has often repeated that while he would like to have our country develop with zero defect, it's equally important that our work results in zero effect. And in that sense, his deep passion for the environment, for concerns of climate change, are reflected in his response to the US then Vice President Al Gore's very, very important book where he had highlighted the concerns of environment, and he spoke about the inconvenient truth many years ago, which in a manner of speaking really brought out the importance of climate change to the rest of the world. But Prime Minister Modi, then Chief Minister of Gujarat, promptly came up with his response, which in a way is the Indian way of looking at things. And he said, what we need is convenient action. After all, sustainable development, sustainable energy is something that has to move out of seminars, move beyond textbooks into action. And in that sense, the new government in Delhi, assisted by support of all the state governments, is looking at serious action to take the sustainable agenda forward, the sustainable energy agenda forward. And I can assure you, this is the one area, the renewable space, the clean energy space, the green energy space, which occupies more time of the power and energy ministries than any other aspect of the particular ministries. While it's nobody can deny that India needs to have a much larger per capita consumption than the 940 that we are presently consuming. And the fact is, Gujarat is almost double of that. Gujarat is over 1800 even as we speak. So when we look at an India average of 900 and Gujarat at 1800, the corresponding part is that a state like Bihar would probably be at about 145 units. And in that sense, Prime Minister Modi has also articulated on more occasions than one his focus on Eastern India, his focus on the northeastern states, where we need to really drive growth, where we really need to take extra pains, that extra effort to make sure that we meet the aspirations of the people of the eastern part of India. But while we may aspire to go up to the developed world levels of 15,000 units per capita, we can clearly benchmark ourselves at least to a 4,000 level, which China is at today. And in that sense, the current production of energy, which is about 1 trillion units, needs to be increased at least 4x in the next 7 or 8 years. And if one were to ask me what would be my immediate goal, I would look at 2019 producing about 2 trillion units of energy, which is double the current production. To be able to at least achieve our immediate goal of 24/7 power to all homes, adequate power to industry, to commercial offices, to the agriculturists, and take this to the next level in the next 3 or 4 years after that. This will obviously entail a large amount of investments in different areas, and Vibrant Gujarat in its 7th edition now, has over the years led the investment cycle of India. I do hope this particular summit, which is now being emulated by all the states, I think there is barely any state left which has not emulated the Vibrant Gujarat experiment successfully. But I think the kind of investments that we are looking for in this sector, to my judgment, which will be in the range of about $250 billion in the next 4 or 5 years, is going to define our achieving the targets of doubling the coal production, getting more gas into the system, expanding renewables, looking at energy efficiency, looking at the transmission and distribution networks very seriously in a focused fashion. All of this is going to look at an investment of about $250 billion. And that, to my mind, is the big investment opportunity for all of you ladies and gentlemen here. We have a very judicious mix of energy generation. Ideally, one would like to make it even better, but we have about 60% of our energy needs coming from thermal power, which helps us keep the base price low and give us the base load, particularly in the absence of adequate gas or oil in the country. We also have wind power in a good, fairly decent way. We have hydel power across different parts of the country, small amount of nuclear, and in terms of installed capacity, about 12-13% of renewables. But in terms of energy consumed, we are still only 6%, as against, I would think, a more desirable level of 15%. So when we produce 1 trillion tons of electricity, we are doing between 55 and 60 billion units of renewable. The aim of this government is to expand the installed capacity very significantly. We have actually rewritten the solar mission, which earlier looked at 20,000 megawatts by 2022, to make it 100,000 megawatts by 2022. And given the support of the investing community and the states, I would love to do it by 2019-20. We have also introduced the fiscal benefits that were necessary to expand the wind energy and bring focus into the wind sector, so that we can bump up wind energy from about 20 gigs to about 60 gigs in the days ahead. We have a lot of stalled hydel projects which we are trying to kickstart again, get back investment into the hydel sector, while of course ensuring that environmental concerns are taken care of. Nobody would like to damage the ecology, the environment of the hilly regions particularly. But taking care of all these constraints, we believe that renewable energy as a percentage of the total energy consumed in the country on an expanded base of 2 trillion units can be taken up to 15%. So we are really looking at the 60 billion units that we are presently producing going up to 300 billion units in the next 5 or 6 years. And that, to my mind, is the big opportunity for all investors in this sector. That, to my mind, is what is going to be the defining feature of India's commitment to climate change, India's commitment to bringing sustainable energy, India's desire to have energy security so that we can move away from our dependence on imports of oil, imports of gas, currently even imports of coal, to make ourselves more secure as a nation. While we are talking of coal, there's been a very, very focused effort to expand the coal production. We are currently producing about 470 million tons in Coal India, and as a nation we produce broadly about 600 million tons. This government has rapidly taken very rapid measures to get this coal production increased to at least 1 billion tons in Coal India Limited in the next 5 years, which is the government monopoly, and add from the private sector, from other consuming industries, another 500 or 600 million tons. So our effort is, if we can take the coal production to about 1.5 times what it currently is, we'll be able to keep the affordable power and the cost of generation reasonable, and therefore sustain the additional cost that we may have to bear as a nation on renewable energy. We already see signs of renewable energy coming to grid parity. We are very close to grid parity, and that little differential that we need to bridge can better be bridged if we have a low-cost power generating source where we can bundle or we can socialize the cost of low cost and the slightly more expensive renewable to still keep power tariffs low across the country. Dovetail that with the efforts on the transmission and distribution side to bring down distribution losses, to have a more efficient billing mechanism, to have a more efficient way to reach out power to all sections of society, particularly the unserved or the underserved. And while we are expanding the energy sector nationally, with economies of scale, we'll also be able to keep our costs down. So in a manner of speaking, the efforts taken to address the concerns of coal will not only help us reduce our dependency on imports, further affecting our current account deficit, the country's foreign exchange reserves, make ourselves more energy secure, self-sufficient, help us keep power costs down, and within that, we are seeing what steps we can take to ensure that the environment is not damaged. So we've made crushing of coal compulsory. We are moving towards coal washing as an absolute must, as a necessity, as a compulsion in the days to come. We've already ensured that every kilo of coal that is transported beyond 750 kilometers is crushed, is washed. In the next year or so, we will make sure that every piece of coal that goes beyond 500 kilometers will start getting washed. And my final objective is to ensure that every piece of coal that comes out of our mines is washed before it goes into the power plants. And in that sense, another big investment opportunity is in all the mining infrastructure, the equipment that will help us introduce better technology in mining, the equipment that will help us crush and wash coal, the equipment that will help us also in more efficient loading, unloading, transportation of coal. I believe another large focus area is going to be getting the coal that we are producing more efficiently to the power plants. I was amazed in that first meeting somewhere in the first week of June that I had with Saurabh Bhai, when he told me that we have coal that comes to the ports of Gujarat and is transported all the way to Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh, which is about 1500 kilometers away. While certain plants in Gujarat have a linkage, a coal linkage from coal mines situated in Chhattisgarh. So you are effectively taking coal from Gujarat to Chhattisgarh and bringing coal from Chhattisgarh to Gujarat. Probably at the same time, the two trains may be passing each other along the way. And while Prime Minister Modi had visualized this problem several years ago, and I believe in your assembly, you have had many discussions on this issue. Probably I was told when Prime Minister Modi was giving his last appearance and address to the Gujarat Assembly also, this issue was flagged off to the Honorable Prime Minister by the opposition. And I was actually amused when I was told that this is what is happening for years. And I'm very happy to report to all of you that one of the first things we did was to bring in the guidelines to allow swapping of coal between different power plants or power suppliers. We have already commenced the exchange of coal between the plant in Korba, which was importing coal that was owned by the NTPC Limited, the government power generating company, and the Gujarat Electricity Board, which was getting the coal from the coal linkages from Korba. We have initiated that as the first pilot swap, and I believe the savings are tremendous. And when we look at a pan-India network, we find that rationalizing these linkages can save India nearly $1 billion. And that $1 billion, ladies and gentlemen, goes straight into the pocket of the consumer. It's something which helps keep our power costs down. And it's these kind of very simple but innovative ideas and solutions that Prime Minister Modi introduced in Gujarat that enabled Gujarat not only to provide 24/7 power to all homes in Gujarat, to industry, commercial establishments, ensure adequate power to the farmers, but also keep their tariffs low. So when I did a study about the various tariff growths in different states in the country, I was amazed to find that while the power companies turned around from a loss of 2,500 crores, which is about $500 million at that time, to a profit of $100 million. A loss of $500 million being converted to a profit of $100 million, simultaneously generation capacity increasing 3 times, simultaneously a massive rollout of the transmission and distribution network to reach the remotest corner of Gujarat, and the lowest tariff increase compared to any other state of equivalent size in the country. I think it's a unique and very significant achievement that Gujarat was able to do. They were able to pass on their tariff increases as and when required to the extent essential, but focused inwardly on more energy efficient ways of running their system, on better technical expertise, and of course economies of scale, for which Mr. Modi is very famous. I was talking about impatience earlier. For him, speed and scale are extremely essential. He cannot but think big, and he believes that unless we think big, we can't deliver big. In fact, I was reading through some journals on renewables, and I came across this very interesting anecdote which I've mentioned in my... I've actually taken my speech to be read because I got it circulated. I'm somehow not very comfortable reading out a prepared text. But Thomas Edison in 1931, in a conversation with Henry Ford and Harvey Firestone, had articulated the renewable story. 1931, ladies and gentlemen, that's nearly 80 years ago. We are like tenant farmers, he said. We are like tenant farmers, chopping down the fence around our house for fuel, while we should be using nature's inexhaustible sources of energy, the sun, wind, tidal waves. And And mark his words 80 years ago. He said, I'd put my money on the sun and solar energy. What a source of power. I hope we don't have to wait until oil and coal run out before we tackle that. It's unbelievable that 83 years ago, a person could visualize the potential, the inexhaustible potential of solar energy. Gujarat showed us the way. Gujarat today has a preeminent position, despite at that point of time solar energy being so expensive. The visionary leader that Prime Minister Modi is, he focused his energies on bringing solar energy into India. He brought in solar power stations on canal tops, on the banks of canals. He's encouraging me to look at tidal energy. He even, in the midst of a cabinet meeting that Dr. Mishra will recollect, when I mentioned to him that, sir, when we are looking at solar parks, one challenge we are facing is that transmission becomes very expensive because the PLF of solar plants being low, we are unable to be competitive. He didn't hesitate a moment to say that then combine wind and solar. Look at the sites where we can get wind and solar together. And then he added another dimension. Look at wherever you have your coal-based power generation or your coal mines and see what renewable can be expanded around those regions to be able to dovetail both of them and keep your transmission costs low. And I think that has encouraged me, shown me a lot of light. His own initiatives on rooftop solar have been very encouraging. I remember when we cleared the integrated power development scheme, which is going to upgrade the distribution and sub-transmission network all across the country, particularly in the urban areas, he immediately asked me to add solar rooftops into that. He said it's an essential part of your entire effort to kind of have a more of a spread of solar and use the existing rooftops so that we can get the power in the daytime, which is when we are most stressed, which is when the farmer wants his power, and where we can generate on our rooftops our own power, become micro entrepreneurs. In any case, Gujarat and Gujaratis are known to be entrepreneurs. I think in everything they do. I'm sure Vibrant Gujarat must also be making a good profit. But I think Mr. Modi would like to see more entrepreneurs, would like to see every home become an entrepreneurial home, generating its own power and then selling power into the grid for the excess capacity that they may have in the daytime when they are at work. But that's the kind of vision that he has for renewables. I believe the investment in this sector is extremely profitable in the life cycle of the renewable energy plants. And Mr. Dr. Upendra Tripathi has kept a very important seminar from 15th to 17th of February in Delhi. It's a Reinvest conference where we are going to invite participants to discuss and resolve issues related to the renewable energy sector and give a renewed thrust to this sector for investments in the days to come. As I mentioned earlier, we cannot but ensure that the environment and climate change are an integral part of all our plans. Honorable Prime Minister has mentioned it on more occasions than one. I believe the Honorable Secretary General of the UN alluded to that in his opening address yesterday. I also believe Secretary of State John Kerry mentioned in his comments yesterday. I will be meeting him later today, and I believe one of the major focuses of the Indo-US partnership and strategic dialogue is to expand renewables, is to bring clean green energy into India rapidly, and to create a sustainable energy framework which is both affordable and clean. It protects the environment. But at the same time, I believe India will have to calibrate its developmental agenda with its environmental concerns. I don't believe it makes a lot of sense only to go on one direction. India is a developing country. India has its development imperatives. India has its challenge of getting nearly 300 million people out of poverty. We need to keep our manufacturing competitiveness to create more jobs, to expand industry, expand the manufacturing base. We need to become more export competitive. And in that sense, we'll have to balance our development needs. We'll have to balance the agenda of development of infrastructure. We need more highways, ports, airports. We need to get housing for all by 2022, another stated mission of the Honorable Prime Minister. And in that sense, I feel at times we are very unfairly taken to task on the environmental issues. India, even today, only emits about 1.64 tons of CO2, carbon dioxide, as compared to about 16 or 17 in the developed countries. We are still 1/10 of what they are polluting. And they have taken years of pollution and put in enough carbon dioxide into the atmosphere while their development cycle was going on. Mind you, I'm not shying away from my responsibility to the environment. I'm only flagging off a aspect of the environment story. Now, in their development cycle, while that pollution went on, and we are being told that now we have to ensure that we pay for that environmental cost, is a thing which will have to be calibrated, it will have to be balanced. We will have to have a partnership where the world, the developed world, who has caused this environmental distress and decay, will have to partner us and will have to support such initiatives to make India able to afford our own investments in this space. Having said that, we will not shy away from our responsibilities. We will not shy away from our own commitment towards a cleaner and greener environment. And we will make sure that in the spirit of reciprocity and in the own Indian spirit of looking at the world as its stage. Sir, you mentioned about looking west. I can assure you, Honorable Prime Minister deeply believes in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one. And for us, your continent and your region is very, very dear to us, sir. I have briefly talked about the transmission and distribution, but I would just like to highlight that we have taken the Gujarat experiment now at the national stage. In the last few months, the government came up with two new schemes, the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Jyoti Gram Yojana, Gram Jyoti Yojana, and the Integrated Power Development Scheme, both of which envisage an investment of about $18 billion by the central government, coupled with investment from the private sector. I believe in the next few years, keeping a longer term perspective in mind, at least a 15-20 year horizon, we will see an investment of about $50 billion in the transmission and distribution space. And we are looking at creating a national grid and strengthening that grid to ensure grid stability in the years to come. We would not like to see a collapse of the national grid like it happened in August 2012. We would like to strengthen the grid. At the same time, provide grid for the future. And you remember when I first became the minister in May of 2014, within 3 days there was a massive storm in Delhi and the national capital was engulfed in darkness because there was no way I could introduce more power into the city. Despite having power all around Delhi, we didn't have enough transmission capacity to feed into Delhi. And in that sense, it was often jocularly expressed that I got my baptism by fire literally and had to faced tremendous distress. I used to get calls at 3 o'clock in the night telling me that we don't have power in one part of Delhi or the other. And in that sense, it only encouraged me to do something for the city of Delhi, to do something in the field of transmission and distribution. Of course, Delhi is the pride of India. It's the capital of India. We have embarked on a very massive scheme envisaging over $1 billion investment only for Delhi, which will strengthen the grid, bringing power into Delhi and the distribution and sub-transmission infrastructure. We have also introduced certain amendments to the Electricity Act which separate carriage and content. And in that sense, we will have finally given to the consumers the power to choose his electricity supplier. You are probably a little privileged in Gujarat, but many of us who come from outside Gujarat know the angst one feels when you don't get good quality power, or you feel you are being charged too much for the power that you are consuming, or the anger you feel when you call up the electricity company with a complaint and don't get a good response. But finally, Prime Minister Modi has introduced the electricity amendment to allow portability of supplier of electricity. So just like we have Mr. Vajpayee, the then Prime Minister, initiating the telecom revolution in the country, we have the Prime Minister Modi's initiative to bring the similar revolution in the electricity sector, which will give people the power to choose their supplier and also the power to change their supplier should they be unhappy with the service or the cost or the kind of quality of power that they get. Prime Minister Modi only last Monday, a week to this day, launched a national mission on energy efficiency that I'm particularly pleased about, because end of the day we all realize that every unit of energy saved, considering the kind of losses we have at the national level, is really equivalent to nearly 1.4 units of electricity generated, and the consequential impact and saving on the environment. And therefore, these two new initiatives, where over the next 2 years, we will be replacing the street lights of the entire country with LED lights. And over the next 3 years, we hope to be able to convert every bulb to an LED bulb. These two new initiatives will result in a saving of over $2 billion annually, with zero cost to the consumers or to the distribution companies. The government has increased the share capital of the Energy Efficiency Services Limited, Government of India initiative, by 10 times. Another reflection of the scale at which Prime Minister Modi likes to work. The capital of that company is being increased 10 times, and that will provide the seed capital and the funding of the entire LED program across the country, and the rest will be paid out of the energy efficiency, out of the savings of power. So with no cost to the consumers of India, we will be saving $2 billion of their money. We will be consequentially saving a lot of environmental degradation, a lot of forest cover, a lot of reduction in the ash in the environment, a lot of reduction in the carbon footprint of India. And these two initiatives alone will reduce the peak load, particularly in the critical evening hours, by about 10,000 megawatts, which is so crucial for a country like India. I believe in the overall context, the several initiatives that we've taken, I've not delved too much into gas because I'm a little over time already, but we are resolving the issue of gas-based plants to use them as a spinning reserve, which will help further enhance the grid stability and help us meet the peak load shortages that India faces. But in the overall context, the government is concerned about what we have inherited, and the government is extremely committed to delivering on our promise to the people of India. This government, under the visionary leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, is committed to provide 24/7 power, affordable power, clean power, and quality power. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir, for that very informative and inspiring and guiding address. We now take this opportunity to request Honorable Minister Shri Piyush Goyal and other dignitaries on the dais to release the National Certification Program for Rooftop Solar Photovoltaic Installer by Germi. This initiative, undertaken by Gujarat Energy Research and Management Institute to empower institutions and train solar technicians throughout the country to meet MNRE's rooftop solar target of 40,000 megawatts by the year 2022. Germi has signed MOUs with 10 states and 20 leading solar companies of India to promote this program. Thank you, dignitaries. Honorable Minister Shri Bhupendra Singh Ji Chudasama has been instrumental in implementation of many ambitious programs of Government of Gujarat, contributing to the Gujarat development model, especially in sectors of agriculture and now education. We now invite him for a word of thanks.
Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal ji, my colleague Jayanti Bhai Kawadia, Mr. Yume Kela, Mr. P.K. Misra and Tripathi, distinguished guests. Before I vote for thanks, Piyush ji, I would like to add 2 words in this seminar subject. The subject is sustainable energy for all with reasonable cost. Because I am a farmer also, I am a education minister also. Our economy is based on agriculture. So we have to strengthen our agriculture. If we want to strengthen our agriculture, we have to give a power to the farmer with a reasonable rate. Moreover, quality power, continuous power. In Gujarat, we have given it by Jyotirgram Yojana. As Piyush ji has already talked about it, our dynamic, my colleague Saurabh Bhai Patel, before 10 years, we started this Jyotirgram. In Gujarat, we are giving quality power, domestic, industrial, 24 hours. 24 hours power in 18,000 villages, as well as in the industry, and quality power to the farmer for 8 hours continuously. For sustainable energy, I think we have to think for hydropower also. As Piyush ji mentioned, we have to bring coal from Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, very far from here. We can produce cheaper power by Narmada Dam. We can have more and more dams in the country, so we can produce cheaper power. Because we have to compete with China and other countries also. They produce cheaper than we produce the power. In Gujarat as well as Jyotirgram, we have provided computer to all panchayat and all 34,000 primary schools also. This is the position of Gujarat. I thank all of you for coming here and attending Vibrant Gujarat as well as this seminar. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, sir. We move on to the next session. We are awaiting Honorable Chief Minister's arrival to sign for the signing of MOUs. Meanwhile, thank you, sir. Thank you, dignitaries. We officially conclude this inaugural session to move on immediately to the next session, to be chaired by Dr. P.K. Mishra, Additional Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, Government of India.